On August 12th, 30 of BCE, the most powerful woman in the ancient world lay dead in a locked chamber. Not from conquest, not from disease, but by her own hand. Her name was Cleopatra VII, Philopator, and her final move would reshape the meaning of power itself. For nearly 3 centuries, the Ptolemaic dynasty had ruled Egypt with Greek intelligence and Egyptian mystique. But by the time Cleopatra was born, around 69 BCE, that empire was already fracturing. Her father, Ptolemy XIII, was struggling to maintain Egypt's independence against the rising tide of Rome. When he died in 51 BCE, he left his 13-year-old daughter in an impossible position, sole heir to a kingdom surrounded by predators. Cleopatra understood something that most rulers never grasp. Power isn't held by those who simply inherit it. Power is performed. It is orchestrated. It is the story you tell about yourself and make others believe. She spoke at least 9 languages. She studied mathematics, philosophy, rhetoric, and astronomy. While other rulers commanded armies, Cleopatra commanded narratives. She presented herself not as a Macedonian Greek woman ruling an occupied land, but as the living embodiment of Isis, Egypt's most sacred goddess. When she entered Alexandria, the cosmopolitan jewel of the Mediterranean, she arrived not as a politician, but as a deity walking among mortals. Her older brother, Ptolemy III, shared the throne according to custom, but custom meant nothing to a woman with her ambition. Within a decade, civil war erupted. Cleopatra was exiled from Egypt. She had lost everything. Then, in 48 BCE, Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria. This was her moment. Cleopatra, now 21 years old and dispossessed, needed an alliance with Rome's most powerful man. According to the historian Plutarch, she arranged to meet Caesar in secret. Some accounts claim she had herself rolled inside a carpet, or linen sack, and smuggled into his quarters. The details vary across sources, but the outcome was absolute. Caesar became her ally. More than that, he became her lover. Within months, Caesar restored Cleopatra to her throne. Within a year, she bore him a son, Caesarion. She had not just survived. She had transformed her exile into a triumph. The woman Rome had written off as irrelevant was now the mother of Caesar's heir. But power obtained through one man is vulnerable to the ambitions of others. Caesar was assassinated on the Ides of March, 44 BCE. Cleopatra, now in Rome with her young son, watched her greatest ally fall to daggers in the Senate. She returned to Egypt, politically isolated once again. Rome was fragmenting into civil war. The triumvirate of Caesar's heir Octavian, the general Mark Antony, and the wealthy Lepidus divided the known world among themselves. Cleopatra needed a new anchor in Rome's chaos. She would find it in Mark Antony. Their meeting in 41 BCE in the city of Tarsus became legendary, though the legend tells us something true. Antony was a brilliant military commander and a man of appetites. Cleopatra arrived on a golden barge, dressed as Aphrodite, the goddess of love. She understood that seduction, when wielded by intelligence, is a form of statecraft. She didn't seduce Antony despite being a ruler. She seduced him as a ruler, as a strategic calculation wrapped in beauty and mythology. They married. They had 3 children together. For more than a decade, their partnership seemed unshakable. Antony, deployed across the eastern Mediterranean, relied on Egypt's resources, wealth, and the legitimacy that association with Cleopatra provided. Egypt, meanwhile, secured its independence against Rome's encroachment. But Octavian was consolidating power in the West, and he was patient. He waited until Antony's reputation in Rome had been sufficiently damaged, through failed military campaigns, rumors of Oriental decadence, and the propaganda that Octavian himself was seeding through the Senate. Then he struck. In 32 BCE, Octavian declared war not on Antony, but on Cleopatra. It was a brilliant rhetorical move. He reframed the conflict as Rome's defense against an Eastern seductress, a woman threatening Roman virtue with Egyptian mysticism and Oriental excess. He weaponized xenophobia. He turned a civil conflict into a clash of civilizations. Antony and Cleopatra's forces met Octavian's navy at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. The battle itself was not decisive, but the psychology was catastrophic. As the fighting raged, Cleopatra's fleet signaled retreat. Antony, seeing the Egyptian ships withdrawing, followed. His army, abandoned on the shore, surrendered to Octavian without another blow. The ancient world understood what this meant. The queen had chosen survival over honor. She had abandoned her lover to save herself. Or had she? In 30 BCE, Octavian marched on Alexandria. Cleopatra, now 39 years old, faced a choice that had haunted every powerful figure Rome conquered. Surrender and be paraded through Rome in chains, stripped of dignity, made a spectacle for the mob, or take control of her own narrative one final time. She chose the latter. According to Plutarch and Cassius Dio, Cleopatra secured herself in her mausoleum, a tomb she had already begun constructing, a monument to her own mortality. She requested a final meeting with Octavian. He refused to see her. He sent instead an intermediary. The message was clear. There would be no negotiation. Egypt's last queen would be Rome's prisoner. Cleopatra sent word to Antony that she was dead. Antony, grief-stricken and wounded, fell upon his sword. He died knowing his lover had chosen death rather than captivity. Then Cleopatra made her final strategic calculation. The precise method of her death remains disputed by historians. Ancient sources suggest an asp, an Egyptian cobra, was smuggled to her in a basket of figs. Others propose poison. What matters is not the mechanism, but the meaning. Cleopatra's death was Egyptian, sacred, and entirely her own. She was not executed by Rome. She executed herself. She was not conquered. She chose her exit. When Octavian entered the mausoleum, he found her dead. Antony lay beside her, or in the accounts, already gone. He had come expecting to capture the last symbol of the independent Hellenistic East. Instead, he found only monuments to a woman who had refused to be captured. Octavian would later found the Roman Empire on the ashes of this moment, but he could not control its narrative. For 2,000 years, Cleopatra has remained unconquered in the Western imagination. Here is what history demands we understand. Cleopatra was not a tragic seductress. She was a political strategist of extraordinary sophistication who ruled a major Mediterranean power for 21 years. She spoke multiple languages, commanded armies, negotiated with Rome's most powerful men, and bore the weight of an entire civilization's survival. She used every tool available to her: intelligence, diplomacy, mythology, and yes, her sexuality. Because power, for women in her world, required mastery of unconventional weapons. When Octavian finally broke into Egypt's treasury, he found it empty. Cleopatra had distributed the wealth. She left him no prize, no symbol, no monument to his conquest. She had already claimed it all for herself. Her death was not an ending. It was the ultimate assertion of agency. In a world designed to diminish women, Cleopatra chose the one act no man could take from her, the moment and manner of her own departure. She transformed defeat into defiance. She made her death the final chapter of her power. Octavian went on to build an empire, but Cleopatra's name outlived his. 2 millennia later, we still call him Augustus, a title, a political construct. We still call her Cleopatra, a woman, a ruler, a force of will. That is her boldest move, and that is her victory.